Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian, and I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things. And I have finally narrowed in on someone I've had my eye on in the periphery since last summer. This is maybe my most highly requested deep dive so far. Thank you so much. Into Kjersti Flaa, the Norwegian interviewer turned YouTuber who helped whip up a huge portion of the hate train against Blake Lively. Even if you don't already have name recognition for Kjersti Flaa, if you've kept up at all with the "it ends with us" discourse, or if you spent almost any time on social media this summer, you probably do know who I'm talking about if I say the "congratulations on your little bump" lady. That is, of course, what Blake Lively said to her after Kjersti opened an interview by saying, "Congratulations on your little bump." We will have an entire section about this, but I'm tucking it away for now just for the sake of continuing with my introduction. And that clip circulated this summer despite being from 2016. Today's deep dive is going to take us through not only this recent YouTuber pivot in Kjersti's career, the suspicious resurfacing of the 2016 clip, but also her existing years-long apparent vendetta against Blake Lively, her failed lawsuit against the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and exactly why I find it so much easier to believe that this is all simply a women-hating, coattail-hitching grift than that she was quite relevant enough to be asked ahead of time to circulate that little bump interview. And I feel like you're probably either here because you've been waiting for this video and because she's been also absolutely infesting your sidebar and suggested videos with her Baldoni baloney videos, or maybe you're here because there is a non-0% chance that Kjersti responds to this video in the future. And if she does to me what she did when she was mentioned in Film Cooper's video, she probably has taken me greatly out of context. This is because, as may already be kind of obvious from what you've gleaned about her so far, Kjersti Flaa has a pretty enormous victim complex, but we'll get to that. First, I'd like to thank Aura for sponsoring today's video. While I may not have the same concerns Kjersti Flaa does about armed agents knocking on my door about a boyfriend named Magnus filling a tax form out incorrectly, I do have concerns about my safety not only as a person on the internet, but as a publicly visible feminist who knows that my opinions can be a little bit polarizing. So, suspiciously soon after a hate Reddit popped up about me, so did a burner account named with my year of birth and my former legal name. The year of birth is not something I hide, but the former legal name is entirely irrelevant, as it hasn't been a way I identified privately or publicly since I was 19 years old. And it's not something I had found a way to connect to my current name online when I searched for myself before starting my YouTube channel. So, seeing this burner account on Reddit, I searched myself again, and this time more than just my own links appeared. I was listed, whether at the express request of the creator of the burner account or just in a way that was very useful to them in their intention of trying to scare me, on one of those people finder data broker websites. And they had found my previous legal name all right, and also apparently several addresses that I had lived at over the course of my adult life. In order to get this listing taken down, I had to create an account on the People Finder website, request for it to be removed, and then check anxiously back in every few hours for the next 24 hours or so until it was taken down. And I haven't even talked about this on my YouTube channel yet, because admitting that this absolute loser who runs my Snark Reddit had managed to devise a way to take up time from every single week where I search for myself and make sure that this same situation hasn't resurfaced felt like giving them too easy of a win. And that's where today's sponsor comes in, because Aura not only sponsored today's video, but also took that responsibility right back off my plate. Aura will help remove your personal information from data brokers and people search sites that can sell your info to identity thieves, scammers, weirdos who run hate subreddits, and more. Aura submitted 23 removal requests for me within just my first 24 hours of signing up. I wouldn't have even known 23 People Finder websites to check for myself on. And Aura can monitor much more efficiently than I've been able to myself, keeping an eye out for not just what I've already found floating around out there and had to remove, but more, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records to alert you about potential identity theft. They'll also alert you within minutes when your credit file has been compromised, like if somebody tries to open credit cards and loans in your name. Aura has a bunch of other features that I'm really excited about too. I have just the one laptop that I do all of my video editing and anything on, so having a solid antivirus is also really critical for me, and being able to have that just in the same place with my password manager and my VPN is super convenient. I get all of that in one app at one affordable price. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to data breaches and brokers, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/ofidoki to try 2 weeks for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. Thank you so much again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the deep dive. As mentioned, Kjersti Flaa is now a YouTuber, and her videos are primarily to do with either the It Ends With Us fallout and her personal vendetta against Blake Lively, or to do with her now seemingly former career as a press junket interviewer. The biggest word I will use for this would be entertainment reporter, but Kjersti calls it journalism quite frequently on her channel. I think Kjersti Flaa is interesting both because she bothers me on a personal level and also because she's part of what I've been increasingly noticing and being frustrated about, a sort of woman hate slop ecosystem here on YouTube with a lot of moving parts. Some being law-tubers who have been crossing all their fingers and toes since the Amber Heard AdSense ran dry that there would be another very public and very visible witch hunt again soon. Some being misogynistic reaction channels, many being just gossip or tea channels, but some being highly paid and highly effective PR teams that are astroturfing the sentiments that these creators either genuinely held or that they're just willing to say because they think it's what their audience wants to hear. Kjersti is not a part of this ecosystem that has many easy parallels. She has all of these clips of her one-time access to celebrities, the illusion of being an insider, even though, as we'll get to, she very much seems to have never been one, but she is still part of this misogyny slop ecosystem all the same. A part of it that is trying extremely hard to root herself in, because really, it has to be the most lucrative goddamn grift. So, once again, Kjersti's deal is that she once was a celebrity interviewer, and not on her own talk show or anything, but in those press junket things that they set up for actors promoting a movie, where they cycle in like a dozen or more different interviewers in and out of a room where the actors are set up. And I promise we will expand on the once was an interviewer part. There are a bunch of different pieces here. We're gonna get back to everything I've already mentioned, the appealed lawsuits, the drama with the IRS and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, but I do want to give you a clearer idea of what Kjersti's whole deal is before we get into that. But I will make something clear toward the start of this deep dive. While the amplification of the congratulations on your little bump clip is suspicious to me and screams Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, Jed Wallace, I do not think that Kjersti herself is an intentional agent of this smear campaign. I actually do believe her when she says that Baldoni's team didn't reach out to her and ask her to post the Blake video. So that's where I want to start, is with this infamous Blake video, and with the state of Kjersti's YouTube channel prior to posting the Blake video. So Kjersti's YouTube channel sat dormant from her last upload on July 26, 2023 until August 10th of 2024, when she would return with a clip that took a very different tone from her previous celebrity coverage, and upload the Blake Lively interview that made me want to quit my job. The tenor of this video, it being a dig at a celebrity rather than an interview compilation or a celebrities, they're just like us type thing, is not the only difference between this Blake Lively interview clip and Kjersti's previous YouTube content. There is also a significant leap in views. Before uploading her Blake Lively interview clip, Kjersti was pulling in around a few thousand, maybe 60 or 90,000 at the absolute upper limits, but more regularly around 5 and 10,000. And then, suddenly, this Blake video. The Blake Lively interview that made me want to quit my job is currently sitting at 6.5 million views. It's a 4-minute and 17-second long video. Kjersti has yet to release an unedited version of her interview with Blake, so this is the longest version of it that exists. This infamous Blake Lively interview, though it circulated last year in 2024, was actually from a promotional cycle for a movie called Cafe Society, a 2016 Woody Allen film that Kjersti was super comfortable promoting at the time and has never mentioned That might be hypocritical of her now that she's slamming Lively for the same. And to be clear, we are no fans of Woody Allen here in the Nuance Corner. But in 2016, while she was promoting this Woody Allen movie, Blake Lively was pregnant. And as the media very frequently is when somebody is pregnant, people were fucking weird about it. Write-ups about her playing peekaboo with her mysteriously disappearing bump were circulating after Blake had rightfully taken her time to announce the pregnancy in the first place. The Blake Lively interview that made Kjersti want to quit her job begins with Kjersti commenting on Blake Lively's stomach first of all, as the beginning of the clip and ostensibly the beginning of their conversation.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
And Blake Lively, now infamously, replies,
Congrats on your little bump.
And Parker Posey, who has been entirely left out of any retribution for being a mean girl since there wasn't an orchestrated smear campaign against her, jumps in.
What about my bump?
You've got two nice ones.
They are kind of bumps, aren't they?
No, not bumps. The lovely lady lumps. Check it out.
Thank you.
And I'm going to make a lot of similar points here in terms of Kjersti's inability to control what happens during her interviews, the way a professional interviewer should be able to, but it is just very obvious to me that a more skilled interviewer absolutely still could have salvaged the interaction even after Blake Lively had what I would say is a snippy but probably justified reaction to having her stomach and the baby in it commented on first rather than the work she did before she was even pregnant. But Kjersti does not wrest back control of the interview, and so Parker continues to drive, asking Kjersti what she thinks of the movie and if she's a Woody Allen fan, and Kjersti says yes, and let's see what her question was, since congratulations on your little bump is not a question, and though I do know from later videos Kjersti would make what Kjersti might have been expecting from Blake, I still really can't imagine how much more she wanted in response to congrats on your little bump than like, oh, thank you. Or I guess I should say, rather than what she wanted, how much more she felt entitled to than that, but I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. So, Kjersti's first question here.
Thank you. Do you like the movie? Are you a Woody Allen fan?
I love most of his movies, and this one was so, like, visually amazing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Did you guys love wearing those kind of clothes that you...
Yeah.
I've got a few things to say about this. First of all, let's just get the beginning of Blake's response, because it's what everybody's so mad at her about, other than the congrats on your little bump.
Yeah.
And, working in
Everyone
digital.
wants to talk about the clothes, but I wonder if they would ask the men about the clothes.
I would.
I love Jesse's
He has
suits
some
and
that's
how
what I'm saying. His wardrobe was beautiful.
I know.
Corey's
Everybody.
wardrobe was
I know.
gorgeous.
He's
Those
so great.
high-waisted pants.
He's so great.
I would wish men
And
wore
sorry,
high-waisted
too.
pants
I
like
know.
that still.
So just the first thing I want to say is that Blake and Parker do answer Kjersti's clothing-based question. They just don't do it in the way she tried to guide them into, because they talk about the men's clothing instead. And the other thing I want to point out, not only is this one of Kjersti's trademark terrible interview questions, but it's also the sort of interview question that was receiving wider backlash around this time. I had completely forgotten about this, but a chatter on my live stream reminded me of this. Back in 2015, so before this Woody Allen movie came out, Reese Witherspoon started the hashtag #AskHerMore thing on Twitter, pointing out that actresses would love to be asked the sort of questions that male actors are asked and not just about their clothing. And though I don't know if this Ask Her More movement is exactly what Blake was intentionally emulating, it seems like a movement that would have resonated with her. I found an article from back in 2017 where Blake is quoted similarly as being a bit offended to be asked about clothing rather than her contributions. Maeve McDermott wrote for USA Today, with more serious issues on her mind, Blake Lively wasn't eager to discuss fashion on Friday, a sentiment she made known to waiting reporters. On the red carpet of Variety's Power of Women event, where Lively was honored for her work combating child pornography, the actress had strong words for one reporter who asked her about fashion. "Really? At this event, you're asking me about my outfit?" Lively said. "Seriously, would you ask a man that?" Lively fought back, explaining that she's at the event to talk about her work with the Child Rescue Coalition, not answer questions that she sees as anti-women. "I'm here so we become more aware and that we change and that we build women up," she said. "So you can ask me another question." And so Blake and Parker do answer Kjersti's question. They talk about costumes and clothing in the movie, and then Blake talks about how the coloring of the outfits change when they get to New York. And then Kjersti's next question is about Hollywood glam and if it's easy to get seduced by money and glam, which is just it's a bad question, I think. It doesn't show that she was really paying attention to their previous answer or that she's trying to really get the conversation back under control, just that she's moved along to her next planned question. And I think one like, congratulations on your little bump, where she thought that it was a question that would get her a better answer than it did. The very last question is probably the only one that I would say is a decent question, even if it's still a bit too open-ended for a great interviewer to ask. But I do think that Blake's response is really fascinating in the later context of what Kjersti herself would go on to do to Blake based on this one-off interaction and the one other time she interviewed her later, since obviously this interview did not make Kjersti want to quit her job badly enough.
That's the thing, as far as like relating to it personally, that you see, you have these ideas of people that you're fans of, and then you meet them and get to know them as a person. And oftentimes you're such a greater fan of them as a person than you are as the person that people feel like they know. And that's always, that's always nice and refreshing when you see that.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is the biggest misconceptions about fame and Hollywood in general?
I think the idea that people think that they know you, I think because of the how intrusive media is these days, there's people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work. And if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you. So I think the biggest misconception I see often is people feeling like they know someone that they don't, because they know what the media has created of someone. And the disappointing thing is when you meet the people, they're always so much more awesome than than they're portrayed to be. I mean, that's normally my experience. And even people that are portrayed to be really great people, they're just a lot more complicated and interesting and nuanced and caring and thoughtful. And that's always nice, to see that your idea of someone isn't always who they actually are.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Kjersti did not publish this interview in 2016 when it happened, only in August of 2024 when the public sentiment against Blake Lively had been so overwhelmingly negative. Her publication of this video was mentioned in the New York Times article, as the PR firm hired by Baldoni had a field day with the engagement that her upload drew. And Kjersti has defended herself vehemently for several videos that she was not asked to publish her interview clip and that she was not part of any smear campaign. As I've already said, I do believe that Kjersti Flaa was not asked to publish this video, but I do not believe that she was not part of the smear campaign, because whether intentionally or not, she provided some of the biggest dumps of fuel onto the fire, and now, certainly intentionally, she profits off of near daily uploads, continuing to pour more fuel onto the fire and delight in any notoriety she can attempt to glean from the cancellation of Blake Lively. But let's put a pin in her other Blake Lively uploads for now, so that I can explain why I believe Kjersti when she says that she was not asked to upload this video. The first and simplest reason to believe Kjersti for this is that her grudge on Blake Lively seems to be a pre-existing thing. Posts from her podcast from about 2 years prior to her publishing the clip on her YouTube channel name drop Blake Lively, according to the auto-translate. It's completely unsurprising to me to imagine that somebody who's already talked negatively about Blake Lively just realized, as she noticed, like many of us did, that the online sentiment against Blake Lively was changing for the negative. And Kjersti did claim in one of her many later uploads that some other reporter who had a negative experience with Blake suggested Kjersti publish her old video, but she hasn't named who that was. I will say that I am completely willing to believe that Kjersti did this of her own volition, or as close to her own volition as exists, as in without having been noteworthy enough for Melissa Nathan to have reached out to her. And why do I think that? I want to clarify, because I think it might sound like I'm being pretty generous to her, that I'm saying that I don't think Kjersti is lying, so I think I should be a little bit clearer. I don't think Kjersti is lying about this specifically. I also don't know whether or not Melissa Nathan's tag agency has reached out to thank her for all the work she's doing laundering their stupid misogynistic talking points. That wouldn't surprise me. No, I think Kjersti showed up and invited herself and then has done all she can do to make herself look like she's the driving force, because Kjersti has already done this. And Kjersti did this regarding, of all things, discrimination in the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. All right, so the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, also known as the HFPA, is the voting body for the Golden Globes. Kjersti Flaa has a boyfriend named Magnus who was in the HFPA, and Kjersti, with her then career of interviewing celebrities for press junkets, wanted to be a member. Members of the HFPA get paid to vote, get increased access to celebrities, and, Kjersti would argue, bribery from the people promoting the movies to buy their votes. Kjersti loses me on her lawsuit, and then loses me much harder in the way she talks about it. The lawsuit is about her having been denied entry to the HFPA. She applied multiple times over multiple years, and some of those years the HFPA didn't accept any new members at all, and on the years they did accept members, Kjersti was not one of them. But her lawsuit seems to argue, as somebody who watched my live stream where we researched this said, that the HFPA is a corrupt organization, and also that the worst part of it is that they would not let her in. Now, the HFPA is, in fact, a corrupt organization. You're not going to catch me defending the Hollywood Foreign Press Association here, which did happen to catch criticism in 2021 over its longtime lack of diversity among voting members. This backlash was not because there was one fewer Norwegian, but because it finally came to mass attention that there were no voting Black members. The Golden Globes were canceled. Not, rhetorically, but, the award show was not put on at all in 2022. The lack of diversity is the primary cause I've seen listed in write-ups about this, but there are also references to sexism in the industry, with Scarlett Johansson calling for a boycott, Mark Ruffalo saying he couldn't be proud of his recent Golden Globes award, and the boy king of Scientology, Tom Cruise, returning his Golden Globe awards in protest. And it's all a little bit complicated for me because I do not follow award shows, so I'm going to read to you from a CBS write-up. A 2021 Los Angeles Times expose revealed that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which serves as the voting body for the awards, had no Black members. Some voters were also accused of making sexist and racist remarks and soliciting favors from celebrities and movie studios. This controversy led NBC to drop the broadcast of the Golden Globes in 2022, only to bring it back the following year after the HFPA implemented reforms, including an updated code of conduct, bylaws, a ban on gifts, and new rules on travel. In a major organizational shakeup, the HFPA was dissolved in June 2023 after the Golden Globes were acquired by Dick Clark Productions' parent company, Eldridge Industries. Problematic voters were expelled, and the membership expanded from about 85 to 300, including a 10% Black representation. And also, this is from a BBC article I read about all of this, and Kjersti is not mentioned in either of these, by the way. Sam Assey told BBC Radio 4's Today program that he found it bizarre that Hollywood was suddenly shocked about the lack of Black members of the HFPA when this has been the case for 20 years. HFPA members are seen every day by Hollywood talent, executives, and publicists. Why the sudden shock? He added, once the tide turned against the HFPA, everyone wanted to jump on the wagon and benefit from it. It's a political game. And yes, Kjersti Flaa, in fact, absolutely wanted to jump on the wagon and benefit from it. We watched the YouTube videos she made about this on my research stream a couple of weeks ago, and while I am saving you much of her self-victimization over having not been accepted to join the HFPA, I will show you just a little piece of how this woman speaks about the admittingly, seemingly surface level attempts at fixing the lack of diversity in the HFPA.
So they hired a consultancy group to fix things for them, who wrote them new bylaws, and now we're not corrupt anymore. We have a hotline, so when our members are not behaving, you can call this number, which no one will pick up, but there is a number you can call, and we are going to hire a DEI expert. And they were like, look now, how amazing are we? And people were like, we still don't buy it. So then they decided to let in 21 new members. They were 29% Black, 24% Asian, 29% Latinx, and 19% Middle Eastern/North African. They were super, super proud to announce this in the press.
Please, 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 please. Is she gonna say she's mad about these numbers because not enough of them are Norwegian? Please, please.
But they accepted no white people, no other Europeans. And we were like, how is that? Inclusive? How is that diverse when you're not accepting anyone?
How is that inclusive? How is that diverse if you're not including any white people? Kjersti, what the fuck? Holy God. This was not about you, so you were not included in the solution. My God, holy fuck. I about lost my mind at this. I mean, the stream is still up, you can see it for yourself, but just the absolute self-centeredness, the white lady victim complex, the missing of the forest for your own self-pitying trees. This was not about Kjersti. That's why she wasn't involved in their attempt at a solution. And I'm also, as I said, not pretending that the HFPA's solution was necessarily adequate. I'm sure it wasn't. I also know the HFPA is terrible for other reasons, though Kjersti doesn't seem to be quite as aware that there are more issues than just the ones she has with them. Like, there's a post on her Facebook where she seems to imply that Brendan Fraser boycotting the Golden Globes had anything to do with her campaign against them, quoting him saying that his mother didn't raise a hypocrite and saying that they have that in common, and also calling him Brandon. Now, to my knowledge, Brendan Fraser's refusal to attend the Golden Globes was because his abuser is a member of the organization, or at least was as of the time he was refusing to go. It wasn't even something along the lines of Tom Cruise returning his awards. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with Kjersti. And that's also the bit I referenced earlier about the armed guards. I will spare you the clickbait of her "the Golden Globes sent armed agents to my door" video, because she jumps around a lot and it's very hard to follow, but according to a write-up I found, her boyfriend Magnus claimed on his taxes that he was authorized to represent the HFPA before a tax agency. Kjersti contends that this was just an incorrectly checked box, an accident, and not intentional tax fraud, and the Hollywood Reporter write-up I read about it calls it an IRS mishap, but that does seem to be how the armed agents showed up at her door. And so then what's left to answer about this, I think, is why, other than, yeah, admittedly being a shady and corrupt and selective organization, why Kjersti did not get accepted into the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. But I think you can kind of already gather as much just from the interview we watched earlier. Kjersti is not a good interviewer. Like, it is completely unsurprising to me if she failed to get a unanimous vote from the other existing members of the organization, if only just because they were not impressed with what they had seen from her. Because, and this leads us into our next section, Kjersti Flaa is just not a good interviewer.
Kjersti Norway.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So, what did your costume smell like the last day of this shoot?
Why ask that question? I mean, like, why?
I'm
What's
just...
what's the, like, but seriously.
Hardline. These are hardline on that. The question is, what's your next question?
Yeah.
But could you wash them? I mean, are they washable?
They're
Could we
spray
wash
cleanable.
them? No, we didn't wash.
Spray cleanable.
There are probably several different case studies we could use for this, but I want to just focus on a couple. I want to start with the other thing that people who have looked slightly into Kjersti are familiar with by now, when a few weeks into enjoying her clout from conducting the Blake Lively hate train, Kjersti decided it was time to try to revive the Anne Hathaway. And she did this by going back for another awkward interview clip. This one from when Anne Hathaway was promoting Les Mis, a press tour I know just from an outsider perspective was brutal for her, in a time in her life that was not easy. And now, Kjersti knows that too, because to my dismay, frankly, Anne Hathaway sent her an email to apologize for that interaction. The interaction that I truly think is not that bad, or at least not bad in a way that reflects negatively on Anne if it reflects badly on anybody. First of all, as with many of Kjersti's questions, this is just not a good one. The question is in two parts. One, will they sing with her? And two, also, were there any awkward moments on set? And Anne, I think extremely charmingly, says...
But then, it was Anne Hathaway. So I was going to ask you to do the first question in singing. Can I sing it to you and you can sing back the answer?
Well, I won't be doing that, but you're more than welcome to sing.
Yeah, so Anne Hathaway was not very excited to be singing to me, and that interview just went completely downhill after that. She was just being like so dismissive of me. Do you feel that love was more passionate back?
Because you're interviewing her like she's in fucking Pitch Perfect and not in Les Mis. That's why she's dismissive of you.
then? Or people would sacrifice more for love than we do today?
No.
No? No. Do you remember your first crush?
No.
You don't? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
She hated me, let's face it.
Okay, again, this pulls me right back to the talking about Blake Lively's little bump in the interview, and what the fuck did that have to do with the Woody Allen movie she was in? What does Anne Hathaway's first crush have to do with Les Mis? And, like, why would she want to talk to you about that when you are just some stranger? Like, it's not... It's like she thinks that, like,
that wouldn't even be an interesting question. I don't know who that is. That's probably somebody from when Anne was like a teenager or something. Like, it's from before she was even like famous. Oh, JoJo's running around.
And Kjersti contrasts this with the other celebrities, who did in fact perform at her whim, and how much nicer they were to her. And the comments on this video Kjersti uploaded are much kinder to Anne than anyone attempts to be to Blake on her videos about Blake Lively. They're pushing back at her. But also, if you look at the views, her video about getting an apology from Anne Hathaway has raked in much less engagement than the video trying to respark the backlash towards her. I would probably spend more time unpacking this had Tara Mooney not just done a fantastic job of exactly this in her recent video, so instead I'm just going to link to that in the description below and tell you to watch it if you haven't already. What I do think is very telling about this clip, though, and about Kjersti being as mad about it as she is that her questions, though she convinces herself that they are good questions, good enough that she was selling a whole course about how to be a good interviewer, even though Blake Lively had made her want to quit her job. But they're not good questions. They are as odd as they are, I think, because Kjersti asks them with not just a correct answer in her mind, but an entire demeanor, a whole performance that she feels owed from the celebrities. With Anne, it was a lighthearted, goofy singing performance and laughter at her for being so charming. Kjersti felt entitled to that. She asked, and this is her time with the celebrities where they perform directly for her because she asked them to, and when they fail to live up to that, she will call them rude, say that they were a bully, and say that they need to be held accountable for their bad behavior. Again, I'm referencing the way one of my commenters put this, but somebody pointed out that she conducts these celebrity interviews more like job interviews than like a media circuit, and I think that's exactly what the large problem is here. If you are lobbing softballs to a celebrity, you should be asking them something that has more than one right answer, but Kjersti makes up the right answer and then punishes them for failing to live up to it. I mentioned earlier knowing what Kjersti was feeling entitled to when she mentioned Blake's stomach, and that's because she mentions in a later video that, well, she had seen Blake on a morning show with Kelly Ripa talking about the pregnancy, so she assumed that Blake would want to talk about it again during the very, very limited chunk of time that she had to promote a movie that had nothing to do with her being pregnant versus on a morning show. Ignoring the fact that Kelly Ripa is just a more charismatic and talented interviewer than Kjersti is, and the fact that Blake and Kelly already knew each other, and that Kelly quickly pivoted the conversation back to Blake's work, rather than it just being a comment on her stomach. None of that matters. What matters is that Kjersti had something in her mind she was going to get out of this celebrity, and then she didn't. And it's not even just the entitlement, which I would think it would be bad enough on its own. It's that she is so entitled, and she is also a hypocrite. She felt so entitled to an apology from Anne Hathaway for her so-called bad behavior, but what about Kjersti's own bad behavior? What about, like, the time she interviewed Claudia Kim for the Fantastic Beasts movie? Condescendingly asked her, "So you did speak English," when Claudia said she had read the Harry Potter books as a child.
Middle school, Korea. Asked my dad's friends to get me the book from the US.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. You're like sending owls. Yeah.
But you read it in English then?
Yeah.
Oh. So you did speak English?
Mhm.
That's cool.
She still does even now.
She did apologize at the time when she faced some backlash for that, sort of. She defended herself, explaining that she's Norwegian and couldn't read in English when she was at such a young age, so she was actually just saying how impressed she was by Claudia Kim. Though I feel like she doesn't feel that same impressment from other white people who learned English as a second language, right? Like, it's a very microaggressive comment. And the reason that I know Kjersti knows that she did something wrong in this interview is not just because of her apology post on Instagram, which has since been deleted, but because she recut the entire interview for her YouTube channel, uploading it, but completely recontextualizing it instead to focus on Ezra Miller. And to be clear, I'm not saying that Ezra Miller has done nothing wrong, they very documentedly have. But Kjersti edited a lot of context out of this interview clip. A clip in which, yes, Ezra was most likely under the influence of something, or manic, or both, but where they made significantly more sense in the full context of the interview. So what Kjersti has uploaded now is not an interview where she does a racist microaggression to a Korean woman. It's an interview where Kjersti is just so baffled by this entirely unexplainable behavior from Ezra. There's no context for why Ezra speaks in Korean and then asks her if she thought it was just gibberish. No mention for her now deleted apology. Just a complete reframing with selective editing to make it so that Kjersti is the victim here and not the woman that she mistreated, even though she is unbelievably rude to Claudia Kim in this interview. It's not even just the little comment about her childhood grasp on English. Kjersti seems to barely even interact with Claudia, aims even questions for Claudia at Ezra instead. We watched the full version on my research stream, and it's just one of many final nails in the coffin for me to at all trust Kjersti that anything she's doing is anything other than a big lie and grift. Like, what else is she cutting out of her other little interview clips with these celebrities if she snipped out her microaggression without any guilt? This from the woman who is so obsessed with holding people to account for their bad behavior? No, I don't think so. Over the last 2 weeks, I have spent many hours on live with many of you going over this recent pivot in Kjersti's career, away from being an interviewer and into being a YouTuber. And I've already mentioned that this was a hard shift in terms of views and engagement for Kjersti, but allow me to just show you what I mean when I say that her whole thing is trying to hold people accountable for their bad behavior. Mostly Blake. Almost entirely Blake. Obsessively Blake. Has she done literally anything else since, okay, like, we've got, this is when we had the Golden Globes ones we watched, celebrities we don't want to interview again, but then, after a couple of months, so she did try some other things, and then here 1 month ago, my Blake Lively interview made Hollywood censorship worse, Why I'm Being Dragged In, and then after Why I'm Being Dragged In, her account is fully a Blake Lively hate account. You can see the thumbnail. Stop lying. They know. This is absurd. Get your facts straight. They accused her too. Why I did it. Her biggest mistake. Is he done? Wait, is he done? The $400 million mistake. This says it all. This is so shady. No one saw this coming. It's so many. It's so many. Can it get any worse? Is it all his fault? Oh no, big mistake. No one saw this coming. I called another insider. Jay Leno spills the tea. OMG, this says it all. Seriously, New York Times? How they tricked us. This is too shady. This makes me so mad. Is she above the law? Oh no, not another one? Oh no, they didn't? It all makes sense now. No, I just can't. That was my dramatic reading of the Kjersti Flaa titles. Thank you. And it's not just the relitigation of her viral Little Bump interview with Blake, something she now, by the way, sells merch about, which is odd if it was really such a heartbreaking, horrible moment in her career. And also, if it's such a mean thing to say, why would you then wear it around on a t-shirt? Her other big t-shirt is like, it's so easy to be kind. Kjersti sells a bunch of t-shirts in her Etsy shop. It's a cutesy little bioessentialist side hustle for if her Misogyny Slop profits start to decline, I guess. And she makes videos about any piece of internet gossip she can find regarding Blake Lively. Videos about the time her boyfriend Magnus interviewed Blake for a simple favor. Videos about how she's connecting with other influencers who were excited to hop on the Blake Lively hate train. She promised an interview with an intimacy coordinator and claims that two have ghosted her, which could be her telling the truth for one of very few times, or could be because she couldn't find intimacy coordinators who would tell her what she wanted to hear, which is that Justin Baldoni has never done anything wrong in his life. And I do mean that Kjersti will talk about just literally anything that is sent to her. We watched a video where she was talking about a Reddit post from 5 months ago that made claims that have never been substantiated anywhere else, like that it was Taylor Swift's fault that the original composer was fired and replaced. And she's also gleefully speculated on whether or not Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are still friends, despite literally no evidence existing to indicate that they aren't, just a Daily Mail article. that she cites as gospel. And the trust for the Daily Mail is so strange because she also seems to distrust people, and she distrusts the New York Times absolutely, because even though they didn't explicitly state that she was involved with the smear campaign at Baldoni's request, she feels as though they lied by pointing out, correctly, how instrumental her little bump clip was in the success of the hate train. But like I said, they pointed that out correctly. It is just true that not very long after Baldoni told his team that they would need something like this about a Hailey Bieber hate post, that the video was seized upon and worked very conveniently in a narrative that Baldoni wanted. And Kjersti absolutely fucking refuses to see that, because then she might have to think for more than just the 30 seconds it takes for her to set her phone up to film what anything she's saying means. Kjersti was a terrible interviewer, and she is also a terrible YouTuber. She does not link to sources, just to the dozens of videos she's made on the same subject, each as sourceless as the one you're starting with. As my chat put it, her source is, "Trust me, bro," or "People are saying," or "I've been seeing this everywhere online." And that is because Kjersti is making slop. She is making misogyny slop. Misogyny slop at previously not heretofore seen levels. She is doing misogyny slopception.
So this is a month after the one we just watched.
Okay, so someone sent me this body language specialist video.
Oh my god! No! No! Oh my god! Holy shit! No! You're joking me. This video, this is not... That's why it said what happened to my body. She's reacting to a body language analysis of herself. Oh my god. Okay. I'm sorry, that was probably really loud, but I just was not prepared for that.
Longtime Nuance Corner friends know that I do not appreciate body language analysis pseudoscience, but there is something almost poetic, right, about Kjersti's content being this low effort. I'm going to react to someone reacting to my body language. I'm going to be a misogynist in that video, and I am going to be paid handsomely for it. Because Kjersti is getting paid. Let's not fool ourselves here. I can give her the credit of not being directly on Baldoni's payroll, but that is because why would they hire her? If you had a guy who would stand on the street and dance with a sign every day for free and bring people in just because he was enjoying doing that, and you were like a shitty little PR demon of a sandwich shop owner, wouldn't you just say, "Nah, this is great, let's just let him keep going until he gets tired of it"? They're not going to pay her because they don't have to, and they're not going to do anything to stop her either. They don't even have to do anything to encourage her, because just the attention alone probably would have been validating enough. But Kjersti is pulling in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on her misogyny slop. I highly doubt that she gets a lower ad rate than I do, considering that I check pretty much all of my videos with the sensitive content ad warning. But even if we were making the same amount of money per 1,000 views, Kjersti is absolutely swimming in it right now. And it feels like an odd thing to make distinctions about when I'm saying, okay, so she's getting paid, but she's not getting paid. But this is the case with pretty much any other misogyny slop creator as well. While I'm sure Nathan and Abel and other shady PR firms do sometimes put influencers on their payroll, as much as implied in some of the paperwork from Blake's complaint, I am also sure that that is the rarest set of circumstances that leads somebody to posting women hate videos on YouTube. I'm sure that most of these people do not need to be asked to do that. And whether that's because they're genuinely just this misogynistic, or if it's because they pivot to whatever position they think their audience will most appreciate, is hard for me to pin down, and even harder for me to care about the distinction of. Because I think either option is nasty. To say shit you don't believe for a check is gross. And to start to believe shit just because you want it to sound better when you say it to your audience is pathetic. And this is pathetic, both in the definitional arousing pity way with Kjersti's victim complex, and also in the definitional miserably inadequate of a very low standard way. It is pathetic to be this upset about an interview from a decade ago. It is pathetic to dedicate this much of your life to your weird obsessive hate campaign. And it is pathetic to not even have any goddamn standards that your hater videos will at least be good or grounded in any understanding of what's going on. Would you like to guess how many videos Kjersti made before she read the lawsuit for herself? I'll give you a couple seconds to lock in your answer. Maybe Maybe she talked about it a couple times before she finished reading all of the lawsuits, which is lower quality standards than I have for my channel, but maybe if she only talked about the New York Times article first. So the answer actually is all of them. All of them. Every video Kjersti made on the situation has been made without having read the lawsuits. Her boyfriend, Magnus, with whom she physically acts out and mocks Baldoni sniffing Lively's hair in one of these videos, because these people are, say it with me, pathetic. Her boyfriend read Baldoni's lawsuit once it was up on the stunt website, and that was the 27th video Kjersti made since the lawsuits went live. And she hasn't read the whole thing. It was just her and her boyfriend talking about the boyfriend reading it, and also them making fun of Blake together, because they are misogynists. The what do we do about misogyny slop question is a bigger one than I know how to answer. Do you know? Yeah? Would you say more? That's beautiful. Okay. It is a question that I know we'll be spending a lot of time talking about on this channel in the coming year, and probably in the coming years. And I think part of what we do about misogyny slop is we get better at naming it. So we get better at identifying it and avoiding it, even when it is women pushing it to us, and even when it is women who either identify with or just kind of implicitly align themselves with feminism. Sometimes people push back at me a little, which I do take in good faith, maybe an attempt to educate me about a word they think I didn't learn yet, when they say, no, it's actually internalized misogyny. And my question to them is, how internalized is this, though, really? Even when we are talking about women, hell, especially when we're talking about women, when you are externalizing your misogyny, when you are doing it for a paycheck and external validation, and you are doing it in a way that is unfair and unhelpful, I don't feel inclined to provide you with a word for it that gives you the cover of ignorance. If you are making it everyone else's problem, the misogyny is not internalized, is it? At the time of me recording this, Kjersti Flaa has posted about 7 hours worth of content about Blake Lively. I'm rounding down a bit. I only counted minutes and not seconds. And the thing is, if these videos were sourced, if they had anything to say, anything at all other than woman lying, woman bad, I was bullied 10 years ago, and poor Baldoni, maybe I would let that slide to have talked about someone for 7 hours. The issue, though, is the absolute lack of quality control. It's having a video stay up even after you realize that you were entirely wrong about the thing you said in the title was the most important evidence nobody is talking about, because you didn't realize until after you filmed, edited, and uploaded that actually Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool, and TJ Miller, an actor in Deadpool, are actually different people. Like, that is the entire conceit of her video, is that Ryan Reynolds taking the Deadpool franchise over from that director means that he and Blake really stole It Ends With Us from poor little meow meow Baldoni. But again, her evidence for this is an interview with a completely different guy. But she has no quality standards for herself. She doesn't have to, because there's no rules in slop. It's just shitting on a woman until the clicks stop. And the clicks will stop. I'm not saying that in a way that means that I'm confident that the issue of misogyny slop is going anywhere. I'm saying it because I'm confident that Kjersti's place in this misogyny slop ecosystem, try as she might to root herself in a way that will last, is extremely fragile. Kjersti is a woman who hates other women, which does offer a certain type of woman a certain type of protection, but it's a protection that runs out, because she is still a woman. Like, you'll notice I didn't make fun of Kjersti's appearance, her age. I did make jokes on stream about how, of course, she was a white lady with a little white dog with shit in its eyes, and I did just call her and her boyfriend Magnus pathetic. But, like, still, I do think that there's a difference between, yes, even multiple hours and multiple videos spent critiquing a woman and her use of their platform, and a gleeful participation in woman hating. I think there's a difference between circling back because the conversation you're having is actually still interesting, and in circling back just to wave around something you saw on Reddit and then say, I don't know if this is true, but still launder the talking points anyway. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the Anne Hathaway thing that much, but truthfully, I think Kjersti got something of a taste of what it will be like when her hatred of other women isn't enough to endear her to strangers anymore, when she tried and failed to ignite the Hatha-hate again. At least in her defense, she hasn't really tried that move again since, though it is because she switched to full-time, low-research hater content about a woman who made her feel bad about a decade ago. And I know I called it a lucrative grift earlier, which it is. You have all these interviews from a decade ago or more that you can comb through and recirculate and gain pity and clout from, and hope to take down a celebrity's reputation, delight in thankful posts about it on your Facebook page. And also, you got paid back when you first interviewed them, presumably, and now you're getting paid again in AdSense, if not sponsorship money. It's the infinite chocolate of being shitty as an interviewer. But it's also a grift with a real expiration date. Not only is Kjersti unlikely to continue getting interviews with other celebrities that she can then use, because I feel people will begin to avoid her if they haven't already, but the exact same people in this same Misogyny Slop ecosystem who are using Kjersti as a source right now will turn on her. They will make videos about how she was actually an evil woman all along, and suddenly it won't be that she was playing with her hands a lot because she was nervous, but because she was trying to conceal her true evil motivations. Suddenly, her nervous smiles will be Duper's delight. Her claims of bullying won't be her being brave and standing up to Hollywood, which, by the way, there is a real anti-Semitic undertone to the way Kjersti speaks about the Hollywood elites, in case you were somehow hoping to give her grace on both the microaggression toward Claudia Kim and also the how is no white people diverse thing. She really doesn't seem to deserve that. But still, that probably will happen. And when that happens to Kjersti, when people are being wildly misogynistic towards her, and I'm sure they will, and also criticism like what I have leveled against her, or against any woman I've spoken about on my channel, is not misogyny, let alone wild misogyny, but I still will think it's a little unfair when that happens to Kjersti, because viral misogyny always is unfair, even if you find its current target personally unpleasant. I will still think that Kjersti Flaa is a completely ignorant white woman with a pre-existing victim complex. I will still know that had she been a woman of color, especially a black woman, and she attempted to make a career for herself by calling out rude white celebrities, that she would be laughed out much more cruelly, much earlier. She would be painted as aggressive in a way that she gets to completely evade because of her privilege, despite how grudge-motivated this fixation on this grift seems to be. And, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not because this is a grudge, but because the PR firm is paying her. Or maybe she got over it years ago and is just very convincingly playing it up now because it's easy money. But much like whether the misogyny is internalized or externalized, does that even really matter? Because I hold two conflicting views here. One is that it's usually reductive and a bit misogynistic to use mean girl as a genuine criticism of a woman. It is infantilizing, paternalistic. It usually applies more to women who don't behave in prescripted ways than to women actually doing anything wrong. Like, at this point in my life, the serious use of the word mean girl tells me more about the person using it than the person they're trying to describe, if they think it's really that bad. And then, here's the conflict, here's the nuance. I think it's extremely funny to call Kjersti the thing she clearly thinks is the worst thing to be. The thing that I think aligns with her content style. And thus, ergo, henceforth and forevermore, in my mind, Kjersti Flaa will be known as a mean woman. But Mean Girl was funnier for the title of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to everybody who hung out during my research live streams, to everybody who watched the live streams after the fact, to everybody who suggested that I make a video about this. I don't particularly want to continue to focus on Kjersti because I feel like Kjersti is providing a lot of misdirection here. Kjersti is refusing to focus on the sexual harassment allegations. Maybe another thing that happens with Misogyny Slop, maybe because they're harder to monetize, and maybe just because she refuses to deal with those because it would force her to need to feel a little more empathy for Blake Lively than she seems capable of. I feel as though it is a waste of time to continue to spend much focus on Kjersti Flaa. I think the only thing she's found real success in, since she clearly didn't find it with her multiple appeals for her lawsuit against the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, is this grudge on Blake Lively. And yeah, she's doing a lot of damage with it for right now, and I'm frustrated with that, but it will flame out eventually. and maybe other women who have been in the industry and have these inside clips of things that make ladies look bad will continue to come forward and follow in Kjersti's footsteps. Hopefully not, but probably they will. So, in the interest of continuing to focus my Blake Lively coverage on the things that I actually find relevant about that case, the sexual harassment, the smear campaign, I don't want to continue to focus too much on this one, probably unpaid pusher of the smear campaign. She was interesting to look at as this one-off thing. She's not somebody who I think there's enough really interesting to say for this to be like a series. And if you were hoping for more detail on much of what we talked about, again, I have several live streams about it. I do want to talk more about this kind of misogyny slop. I want to talk about content that centers primarily around hating and disbelieving women. And this was a good way to do some of that. A frustrating way. A way that definitely raised my blood pressure a few times over the course of doing research for it, but still, a good way. Also, thank you. I said last time I was recording that I might be at 12,000 by the next time I was recording, and that was true. We just hit 12,000 subscribers in the Nuance Corner, like last night. Very, very exciting to me, very humbling. I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful, and I promise to continue putting infinitely more work into my videos than Kjersti Flaa puts into hers. Thank you to my lovely Patreon subscribers, a few of whose names you can see on the screen right now. If you're interested in a couple extra videos from me every month, Patreon's a fantastic way to help support me financially. I also have coffee for one-off donations, and just watching my videos all the way through to the end also really helps. And now that I have sponsors, maybe by checking the link in the description for the free trial for Aura. Thank you again so much to Aura for sponsoring this video. Thank you to all of you for being here, giving me a big enough audience to even have that kind of opportunity. It's really cool. I'm really grateful. I love you. I love making videos. I'll see you again soon. Bye.